So welcome everyone. We are here. Today is amazing. And this is the open house for Yale's Business Perspectives for Creative Leaders program. My name is Kristen Sorick West. I'm the Director of Marketing for Executive Education here at the Yale School of Management. As I mentioned, housekeeping items. We are recording this webinar and the recording will be distributed afterwards to all registrants. We encourage you to send us questions and comments throughout the webinar using the chat and the Q&A features. I'll be moderating the Q&A and my executive education colleagues, Rachel Mileto and Joanne Legler, who are on the call with us as well today. They will be moderating the chat. So you might see them pop in every now and again. Rachel and Joanne, at your leisure, please give a hi and a hello in the chat. Rachel's already done it. So fast you are. Hi, Rachel. So as I mentioned, we're here today to talk about business perspectives for creative leaders and the program experience and what you can expect if you decide to attend this program. So in that spirit, our time together today is a time for discussion. We're going to answer your questions along the way, so please submit them when they come up. Odds are that if you have a question in mind, someone else on the call has a similar question in mind. So let's put them to the forefront. The program is live online and it is hosted here, or hosted by us at the School of Management. It is designed with two goals in mind. The first is to equip creative leaders such as yourself to meet the challenges of management. And the second goal is to give participants the skills and perspectives they need to reach the next level in their careers. We want you to complete the program really more confident in your business acumen and in your ability to succeed as a leader. We are hosting the Business Perspectives for Creative Leaders program this winter. You might hear me throughout this introduction or throughout the webinar shorten the program name to BPCL just because it starts to become a mouthful. But I'll do if you need me to, I'll say the full program name, Business Perspectives for Creative Leaders. The program is hosted this upcoming winter, January 30th through March 6th. It is 6 weeks long, and there are social networking sessions on Tuesdays and academic sessions on Thursdays. We have three fantastic participants on the call with us today: Tracy Davis, Jose Hinarte, and Michael Lentz. They're here to share with me and with you their experiences and perspectives on the program. So all three of these folks attended the program this past spring. And I am just so grateful to each of you that you were willing to share your time with us today to talk about your time in the program and let us in on your experiences. So now I'll do a couple quick introductions just so we can get to know Tracy, Michael, and Jose a little bit better. Tracy is a contract designer. She specializes in delivering impactful print and interactive design solutions, including long format reports, marketing collateral, and C-level presentation. Her diverse background encompasses fast-paced agencies, in-house design departments, small studios, and currently remote teams, allowing her to approach projects with both strategic insight and creative flair. Welcome, Tracy. And you are based in Chicago right now, so thank you for dialing in from a cold Midwestern city.
Thank you for having me.
Jose Hinarte is the creative lead of photography at Airbnb. He is a photography director, an editor, and creative producer with 13 years of experience in the editorial and advertising sides of the photography industry. Recently, he was the visuals director of Bon Appetit, where he had led a team of photo editors and photographers working on both the monthly print edition of the magazine and Bon Appetit. Welcome, Jose.
Thank you so much.
And finally, we have Michael Lentz. He is the art director for the Conceptual Image Lab at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center and leads NASA Creatives, a collaborator group of nearly 400 content creators across the agency. He works closely with scientists and engineers agency-wide to bring their stories to life through art and animation, alongside a diverse team of creatives. Welcome, Michael.
Thanks for having me.
Well, again, thank you all for joining us, and I'd love to kick things off. Let's start at the beginning. So you all have very different professional backgrounds, and I'd love for you to tell us, prior to attending the program, where were you at with your career? Tracy, let's start with you.
Yeah, so I was and still am a remote worker. I work from home. It's important to me to be at home. I have two kids, I have a dog, and just love the flexibility since the pandemic to be able to have maximized billable hours. And as a contractor, I get to work on different accounts with different teams of people across the United States. And so that's where I was coming from. And because I work with high level people, including C-level executives, I was really interested in getting a grasp as to not just how they talk, but also how they think and how they make their decisions, and how could that approach help me in how I do my daily work.
So that stakeholder conversation or how to approach different conversations with different stakeholders was forefront in your mind.
Yeah, if I'm designing for them, I should have a better understanding of who they are and where they come from.
Yeah, the language they use, their priorities.
Exactly.
How about you, Michael?
I kind of started off at NASA as an artist, and then a number of years ago became an art director there. And then about 5 years ago, formed the NASA Creatives Group. And then after that grew, I realized I was in a creative leadership position without traditionally trained leadership skills. So I started looking around at this large group, thinking, wow, I need to learn more about how I can better manage and engage with these teams that were dispersed across the entire country. So that's when I really started looking around. It's like, how can I just get a little bit of something under my belt to get a better understanding about how to engage and manage and work with larger teams, and even on the smaller teams as well. I have a small design team I work with as my core group, and just even working with them, and that's kind of what drew me into looking around about where can I learn and get something like that. And this was the place that I drew me in.
I love the need for understanding team management or team building or employee motivation, like all incredibly key elements to rising in your career and also finding success with your organization and with your clients internally. How about you, Jose?
Yeah, my story is very similar to Michael's in a way. I came into the photography industry purely just looking to shoot as a photographer independently as a freelancer, and then found that I had more interest in the editing side and what was happening behind the scenes of a commission before a photographer was ever even contacted. And throughout my career, I kept looking for more opportunities to grow as an editor, to the point where I became a photography director of a magazine. And that was kind of a wake-up call for me to really think about, what sort of leader do I want to be? What kind of management style feels natural to me? And how can I grow and develop in that way? And I found myself learning on the job in a sense, which can feel exciting, but also challenging when you're responsible for meeting certain goals and keeping stakeholders across a whole company, apprised of what's going on with your own projects in a way that is effective. And yeah, I was looking for something to help give me some more confidence and direction.
Yeah, when you're learning on the job, you have to balance a lot of different responsibilities and shift your perspectives and your headspace quite frequently. So I can imagine why you would want just to take some time away and dedicate yourself to professional development and self-improvement. And in that vein, Jose, let's continue. What types of opportunities were you looking for? Was Yale the only option that you were looking at, or were there other even like conferences or like in-person workshops, or like what were you looking at when you were going through this process of realizing that you might need some dedicated professional development?
Sure. Yeah, I at the time, I feel like for creatives, there's always a need and a desire to evolve and keep up with, like whether you're a designer or photographer, photo editor, to keep up with like the newest technology, whether it's, like how people are using AI to just simple art education that you could, or not simple, but really ways to just purely focus on the creative and then not, and kind of setting aside like some important lessons we can learn about how we communicate with each other interpersonally and lead organizations and design organizations. And I was looking for something that kind of met me halfway there, where I could be with like-minded people, like-minded creatives doing really cool work, and then also talk about these things that don't come quite so naturally to us, but we're all capable of doing, which is leading with emotional intelligence and having meaningful conversations about how to grow as a leader.
So you were looking for something that like that balanced the tactics alongside of a bigger picture strategy or overarching skill development.
Yes, exactly.
Something beyond something that was super tactical, like learning about AI tools and becoming a prompt engineer. How about you, Tracy?
Yeah, I had known about the program for some time, and it's advertised through AIGA, but it was always a struggle for me to clear the calendar to physically be where you are. And so once I figured out it was offered online, that was like the easy fix for me, because I was like, well, I can do this. I can rearrange my schedule here and work and do everything I need to do and do Yale all at the same time. And also, you can take a day class or a week class or whatever it is locally, but sometimes it is more productive, like this is how to do something step by step and not the bigger picture thinking, which is what I was looking for as well. Being with a cohort of people just like me, talking big picture, getting into the nitty gritty of things, not just learning a trade per se.
So both you and Jose have mentioned the importance of wanting to learn with like-minded people, and wanting to, like, it sounds like you wanted to meet others and not and get to know them. Is that right?
Yeah, like the experience of the program itself isn't just a class, and it's not just watching a video like other schools have, right? Or being lectured to. And it's very interactive, and you actually do make friends, and you can get together with people in your own city. So like, or be online too, and jump on anytime you need to. So yeah, it was the big picture from start to finish. It was the whole package.
Well, I'm glad that you said that you got to that pitch 16 minutes into this webinar, but I'm gonna go back a little bit because I also want to hear from you, Michael. When we were talking about other options, like looking at the field of professional development opportunities, because there are so many different variations and options. I wanted to just know what you were looking at when you were considering Yale alongside your other options.
I think it's similar to Jose and Tracy in that the thing that drew me to this was that it was very geared toward creatives that were in a leadership role but did not have traditional leadership experience. And that was the thing that I think was very cool once I was in it, because it's you find your people kind of thing. It's like, wow, there's so many people out there in that same boat that do not have. I mean, when you come up as an artist through corporations or even on your own, you get to that point where you have to start leading, yet you've never had that traditional trained experience to understand that. And I think that's the thing, that it was so much geared toward creative people, and that's the balance that I saw that I wasn't really seeing in other places. Yeah, you can learn about finances and, employee engagement, things like that, that are very business focused. But when you're managing creative people, it's honestly, it's totally different. And I think that's the benefit that came into it. We all come up through the content creation world and we understand and speak that language, but then to add the leadership understanding on top of that, really changes, and it gives us a more unique ability to understand and speak to leading creatives, which I think is very unique.
Hmm. Jose, did you want to elaborate on that at all? I noticed you nodding your head.
Oh, well, I was just in alignment completely with where Michael is coming from there. And I think a lot about how, but like finding a group of people that care about these things is not an easy thing to do in everyday life, even at work. Like someone who wants to really think about and investigate the ways groups come together to arrive at a decision or exercise influence over someone that's more senior. Like all of these things they're sort of unglamorous when you're working on cool, shiny art projects, for money. But then I think when we meet people like Rodrigo Canales, who was really really influential for me, and understanding how we can effectively build organizations and compartmentalize how we do creative research and experimentation, and then also implement rigid structures and ideas that help execute a project. All of those things for me were really special. So yeah, I think that's why I was nodding my head. Yeah,
That's great. I want to build upon that because we did get a question in the chat about identifying professional development topics that were important to you. So like what we mentioned at the top, a couple of motivating situational factors, right? But in the program, like what were your experiences with like aha moments or skills or strengths that you were excited to gain when you were going through the program? Jose, let's start with you.
yeah, of course. I would say the lessons we had on emotional intelligence were the most illuminating for me, just because of how universal that as an idea is for everybody, or as a thing that really like affects your state of mind and your quality of life at work and outside of work. And I sometimes think about how emotional intelligence is kind of like a buzzword that people want to see an interview candidate have, but then like it's hard to gauge that in an interview or even talk about what it really is outside of a few like core ideas. And in the lessons that we had about it, we really explored it and unpacked it and got to learn about how emotional intelligence exercises can really help you regulate how you go through your day to day at work, and also just help you enjoy the work beyond just being successful in your projects or whatever. I mean, it was really essential for me to walk away from the program and have that be something I can have under my a tool in my belt, I guess, or in my toolbox, or whatever the phrase is. So yeah, I think that's my answer.
The original asker was asking from the perspective of early career and later career, and I love the sentiment of wanting to be successful at work and then also enjoy the work that you're doing, and how I could see that being something like the happiness component being something you're willing to set aside early in your career just to like get the clients, get the start, get a foothold, and then as you rise, that rising in importance of like needing to not only deliver on the projects that you're being asked of manage, but enjoy the work that you're doing. Tracy, I want same question for you about the important topics that were discussed and skills strengthened what were some takeaways from you from the program?
I really enjoyed the negotiations section of the lessons. And it, like, I guess going back to early professional versus later on in life, like, it's not just about asking for more money or asking for better benefits. Everybody wants that. Or then as you get longer into your career, it's more about getting bigger budgets, or, you know, providing for your team, or the big picture, or what's the deliverable. But for me, it was more about just talking with people and getting to learn about the person you're talking with and doing business with, and figuring out what's a win for them versus what's a win for you, and how everybody can win through this exchange, whether it's goods and services, or just conversation, or it's the contract itself. And so that part was fun for me.
I'm recalling the amount of stakeholders, like the conversations I've had with participants in the past about needing to manage down, laterally, and up. And that kind of sounds like what you're describing now. Is that right?
Definitely.
Was said with a great sigh. Yeah.
It's a big yes. There's a lot of work involved.
I was gonna say, let's not think about deadlines right now. Let's not. I'm sorry if that's what's coming to mind. Michael, how about you?
Um, I think my big takeaway that was so helpful is not, I mean, there were specific sessions that were really amazing, but I took away the totality of how all of the classes were integrated and built and played off of each other. And that was one of the things I felt was really amazing, is that I came away with so much more knowledge out of this that I'm still digesting even today, um, about how to lead. And I think one of the things that really hit me was being able to create sort of a bubble of confidence and creativity around a small team that can sort of ripple out to the agency as a whole. And I've sort of done that with the small design team I've worked with. And I think getting into the shift from early career to later career, I realized that early on, as an artist, it was very much, I want to create a really cool work for the client and get that out there. And now I made this shift into, I want the artists that I lead to be able to have the confidence and creativity to create the best stuff that they can do. And that's really sort of now how I'm feeling I'm evolving into a creative leader, is how can I position people to do the best work that they can do with minimal stress. And that's kind of now the mindset that I work in. And all of the sessions that I went through in this course are feeding into sort of that now and helping me with that. So I think that was the big thing that helped me, was just the integration of the sessions and the information that was given out in those. And I think, even as Tracy said, it's such a collaborative session. You're not just sitting there being lectured to. You go into smaller breakout sessions, you talk one-on-one with people, you form these connections, because everybody there is a creator and you have that connection. And it was amazing to hear how many people are going through the same thing. And I think that helped, us learn and engage with the classes as well.
Mm. And so we're talking a lot about the meaningful experiences with peers during the program, and I would love to hear all of your thoughts about what it was like to learn for a day or two, because we talked about Tuesdays and Thursdays being the predominant active days of the program, and then going back to work. So what was that like, of taking in a day of sessions and then going back to the work, back to the clients, back to the projects? Tracy, let's start with you.
Yeah, well, so, you can still get pinged off to the side because we all have our electronics on, even if it's on mute. So it's hard sometimes to put the blinders on, but I would get so excited about what I learned that day and then have to think about and process it. So there was that time for processing initially, and then how do I implement that? And when I would go back to working with people, that I'd want to tell them, like, or I want to try something out that week. Like that was my goal. Every week I needed to try something new to see how could I apply it and how successful it was in real life, right? Because it's one thing to talk about it at school and like think about it in your brain and or write it down on paper, but then to actually implement it, it can go sideways too. So that was good, definitely that transition.
Did you give yourself like an assignment, like a weekly assignment? Like, did
I
you structure it that way?
I tried to see how I could apply things that or tools that I learned, or like if we had a new way of decision making, like we got that chart and it's like a path. If you do this or do that kind of thing, if you say yes, if you say no. And so you could try that out with real life experiences to see like, well, did it change how you would have initially thought I was going to answer that question or lead that group's discussion, or, would I give um, more importance to a team of people to decide for themselves, or would I just decide for myself, this is the best financial answer to do it, and I already know it, and I'm just gonna, so yeah, it was great every week to try that and bounce back and forth between how much time do I actually spend on the Yale stuff versus how much do I actually spend on my work stuff.
That's right. Part of the challenge with really taking any course, but especially with online where you can receive all of those notifications and be constantly reminded of upcoming meetings, it is setting aside that time in your calendar and also being able to give yourself that permission to make that pivot mentally into dedicating that time and that focus.
And also preparing for the class. So like every week we would have readings. And we could, since we already got to meet each other after the first initial meeting, we could reach out and ask questions or discuss it if we did before the class even started. So there was definitely strategy there too.
How about you, Michael? What was it like to participate in the onlineness of the program? What was it like to take in a session and then go right back to the desk?
Um, I enjoyed it. The virtual sessions were so engaging because again of just how collaborative it all was, and the breakout sessions. I did not personally, only with one session did I have some fires explode that I had to deal with at work that was just unavoidable. But I think even still, the things I take away from those classes, I would go back and experiment and see, what's going to work. There was, I think, an interesting one where it was like we went into breakout sessions and it was like, you know, talk about something that you would never have mentioned to somebody else before, that you just don't normally talk about. So I did that with my team when I went back, and I said, so we're all going to sit here and say, tell us something about yourself that you haven't told us before. And it was amazing how much closer that brought the team together. And these are people that have been working together for 10 plus years together, and they were discovering new things about each other they had not known. And it was interesting to see how that was bonding the team even tighter than it was. So those kind of things I would kind of pepper as I go along. I'm still doing that to this day. I'll go back and look back over notes and things from the classes and be like, oh yeah, well, I should try that and see how that works. And as Tracy said, sometimes they don't stick, and sometimes they do. And when they do, it really does make a huge change.
That's wonderful to hear. And I love that both of you have said you're still going back to your notes. Like we're here, it's about like 6 months after you've left the program and you're still referring to your notes. That's awesome. How about you, Jose?
Yeah, actually, I was thinking about what Tracy said about the decisions, the way she would make decisions after, learning about like the decision science or theories that we had ingested in the classes, and that was really my experience as well. I had found we had studied. Just for context, we had studied or been given the homework of looking at maybe 100 different case studies about decisions that were made in different industries and in different contexts and various levels of low to high stakes. and even study, decisions that were made on like a rescue ship that was going to find someone in the middle of the ocean during a hurricane. And all of that at the time really, like it was fascinating to read about how people kind of navigated each situation and then attacked it from, a technical perspective, but then also like we had to, when we discussed them, we weighed the competing ideas and concerns. And then when you go in that deep on something so outside of your realm and then take it back into your creative day to day, it really makes the day to day so much easier to think about, because it's, at the end of the day, where like I'm making decisions that they are complex, but I think having the chance to think about the act of decision making on its own and how to execute a decision with a group in a way that feels more intentional and not just sort of like a gut instinct it was really helpful for me.
Having the gut instinct reinforced by some scholarship, some science.
Yes.
Yeah. I want to go back to something you mentioned, Michael, about leaving the program with a bubble of confidence. Could you expand upon that? Like were you expecting to receive that when you came into the program? And when you left the program, what did that look like, perhaps with communicating to your team or the various stakeholders above, next to you, or below you?
Yeah, I wasn't necessarily, I don't think I was expecting that when I came out. I might have like subconsciously thought that that was necessary, but it took the class, I think, to draw it out. Um, and that's when I really started to try to lean into that idea of giving the artists that I work with more confidence, because I think as artists and creatives, most of us tend to come from a very introverted world. And when you start getting into leadership positions, you either have to come out of that introverted bubble or you have to learn how to fake it really well that you're not. And that's where I feel that confidence with other artists is important. It's giving them the confidence to defend the work that they do, to be able to talk about the work that they do in a way that expresses the need and the why of what they did for other people that may not be artists to understand it. And that's the sort of the difficult thing, is a lot of times you have to explain the creativity to people that are not creative, and that building that confidence for anybody to be able to do, I think is really important. So that's why I started working on that with my small core team, to help them build that. And now a lot of them are going off and speaking at webinars and things like that now, whereas before they're like, no way, I'm never going to do something like that. And I think too, from a confidence standpoint, a lot of them find things like webinars a lot more comfortable than speaking to a room full of people. And that has led them to build that, where now some of them are not as nervous about talking in front of larger teams, talking about their art, how they create, and things like that. So that's one of the big things I was working on, and still am. I think it's a evergreen thing.
Absolutely. On the topic of like that, of you coming from an introverted place of being an artist and a creative and moving into a more public facing role, let's say like being a leader of a small team. Did you feel like you evolved your leadership style through this program, or clarified it?
Very much so. Yeah. I mean, I was in a creative leadership role, but I think the class helped me focus on a number of different areas. I think, both Tracy and Jose were talking about, the decision making. That is now something that I'm much more conscious of how are those decisions being made. Even with the emotional intelligence, going into meetings, drop your baggage at the door, go in with a clean slate, listen to what's happening in there before you're making just, quick decisions on things. Engage how you're engaging with people and other teams. I think all of that has shifted after this. I mean, I kind of knew it was there and I needed it, but I didn't know the structure of how to develop it. And I think that's kind of what shifted after this course. It gave me that structure to build what I knew I needed, but didn't know what to build it on, kind of thing.
Like a scaffolding and guide.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It was very much like that. And that's why I still, as I mentioned, reference notes, because it really gave a structure for me to build how I lead as a creative now, that I didn't have before I took that class. And that's what I think gave me sort of that foundation to be building on. And again, all of the sessions, are on there and work with each other. So that's one of the things that I think has really helped me afterwards.
How about you, Tracy? What was that
I would say,
leadership
yeah,
pathway?
I would say that this class gave me more tools in my toolbox, right? Like I was already doing some of these things and maybe not consciously aware that I was going through some of this process or part of the process. And now it's definitely defined, it's named, this is what it is, here it is, use it, don't use it, or use part of it, the part that you like or that works for you and your job or your team or your situation. And it's just more clearly defined. And it's there to help me, right? To be a better me and to also make sure the people I'm working with, I can help them be better than those people too. I mean, everybody wants it to be successful. You don't want to fail. You don't wake up in the morning and like, oh, I'm going to have a terrible day. You want to have the best day and you want it to be easy, right? Not as easy as possible.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So for you, it was more of enriching the tools in your toolbox, strengthening them, as opposed to, or I guess I want to like parse out. Did you feel like you had, you came into this program with like a sense of self as a leader and like in your workplace, or was that not even on your radar? You were like, I need to learn about, executive decision making so I can really improve like my internal workflows and my project management.
It was on my radar, but I just didn't know how to like tweak it in a sense and make it work better for me or make the people that I'm managing more successful in what they do. And it could be anything as to like how they do their tasks or do they do it on time or do they do it on budget or those kinds of silos versus the bigger picture of like, well, what is our deliverable and are we even making something that we need to make or should it be something different over here? And we all come from different organizations and different corporations or small businesses, whether it's the municipal transportation company or it's, energy or it's high tech, or it's design studio. It all varies, but all the tools can be applied to each one, no matter how big or how small.
Makes sense. How about you, Jose? What about you in terms of like clarifying a leadership style or gaining a sense of self during the program?
Yeah, of course. I do recall there was a moment in the course where we did sort of a self-assessment. We I think we had answered like a series of questions, and then at the end we were kind of rated on a scale of how I guess independent we are as decision makers or leaders, and then how like I guess for lack of a better word, democratic we are. I feel like there's another term for it I don't recall, but how much we involve groups and rely on teams to arrive at decisions. And I found that I surprised myself about certain things about how I lead, and I think that was a common reaction throughout the group was that people were kind of unaware of where they fell on that spectrum, and getting that sort of like that check-in about how we actually behave in certain situations at work kind of gave us a place to work from and to understand how we could grow or develop as leaders. And I definitely walked away from that portion of the program feeling like I knew who I was as a leader and who I wanted to be as a leader. If that makes sense.
It does. I was like thinking about acting upon it. So like exiting the program, if you like, there's a sense of confidence of like who you want to be or how to maybe even just strengthen what you're already putting out there. I want to know, I'm very curious to know if you saw these changes happen immediately, or if it was something that it was much more of a slower advancement and something you're still working on.
Yeah, I would say it's incremental, and it happens in windows for me, like in between I guess like the work itself, like the creative work, making things. I think the moments where we're talking to each other about them, presenting things, pitching things, sharing feedback, receiving feedback, like all of those moments for me present opportunities to exercise a few of the things that we learned. And I think for me, when working with my team and speaking with them, knowing how I want to communicate with them and how I want to approach problems with them together is something, having more confidence, I guess Michael's confidence bubble, that is very much a part of how I like to work now since the program. And I think at least having more of a sense of assurance that what I'm saying and how I'm communicating ideas is that there's more intention behind it, and it's less improvisational.
Michael, did you want to elaborate on that at all or follow up?
No, I mean, I agree with Jose on a lot of that. I think that was a big thing coming out of it, is how the change of engaging with the people you work with shifted. Because that I think was one of the big shifts that came out of this for me, is I really thought a lot differently about how I was working with the people that were around me and with me. I think, as Tracy said, above, below, and to the sides, all around you. So that was a really nice thing to come out of it with, and that I think is something, it's never something where you learn it and you're done with it. These are things that you're taking what you've learned and you're building on it. You're changing and you're shifting it. It's never a one and done. And I think, again, getting back to it was a great foundation to help me start that. And that's what I found really valuable.
Did you, in terms of still processing the material, you mentioned going to notes, and also in the same vein, you mentioned all of you have mentioned the value of connecting with peers. I'm curious, in processing the material after the program ends, do you still turn to your peers from the program and have questions for them, or do you keep in touch with them even on more like personal and casual topics? Tracy?
We have a Slack channel now. So I get pinged and dinged when somebody posts a question, whether it's general or a specific topic, which is nice because we can all find each other there. And then I have a group of women here in Chicago, and so we have gotten together for dinner, and email each other back and forth. So that's nice too.
I love hearing that. Last year I learned that one of our participants was aspiring to do a road trip across and visit his peers in his cohort. And I think that was quite charming as a way to stay connected. How about you, Michael?
I've been keeping in touch with people through LinkedIn mostly. That's primarily I do try to limit the channels that I communicate through just because they can become overwhelming at times. But it's been great because it's that kind of thing. Although not consistent, it's nice when it's like you went through the same thing with somebody and you can reach out and say, "Hey, do you remember when we were in that class and they talked about just catching up on things like that." Has been really nice. And again, it's such a long-term thing because as short as the course is, there's so much information that you get out of it that it's that processing time, it's the digesting of it all and how to incorporate it. And I think being able to reach out people that have gone through that, hey, how's that been going with you? I mean, it's great to hear even, how Tracy and Jose have been working with it just through our conversation here today. I think it shows how that long-term influence of the classes affect the people that were in it. And being able to reach out to people even after, months after the class has been over has been really nice.
Mhm. What about you, Jose?
Yeah, I'm a part of that same Slack group too, and it's been great having that network there and on LinkedIn as well. And I've managed to get drinks with someone that was also based in New York that was in the cohort. But yeah, I mean, to Michael's point, like the the program itself was such a break from everybody's day-to-day work lives that I think even, the personal, more I guess, like the parts of the program that where we really dove into who we were as people, and like, there was one part of the program where we meditated on who we are at our best. And I think that is such a private thing that like everyone was just kind of open about, and we got to learn about what we what we are most proud about ourselves, and like our greatest strengths and how we want to grow. And I think that sort of thing kind of bonded us, even if we don't see each other at the same frequency. But yeah, I mean, having a network is invaluable. And um, if anything, I'm always around to get a drink with someone whenever they're in New York.
Love that. And yeah, having a shared experience or common language, right? To like go back and say, do you remember Rodrigo's sessions and this one and in his first session when he said X, Y, or Z? That is truly invaluable. You can to have that shorthand language with a peer in a program and to be able and to build that relationship in a program and to develop that relationship long after the program is something to be cherished. So I want to ask, in like you've talked about the long tail effects of this program, if for those who are on the call, and thank you all for staying with us as we slowly start to wrap this up, I just want to know, what about giving advice to people who are considering applying and how they might prepare themselves for participating in the program? What kind of, I mean, it could be, your advice could be tactical, like time blocking, it works, or it could be what kind of mindset should you bring into the program? Tracy, how about you?
Yeah, so definitely set time aside for yourself and prepare and do the homework and do the reading so you know what you're walking into that day. And also come on the Tuesdays. The Tuesdays are more relaxed and they're more social, and you get to actually be in breakout rooms with smaller groups of the cohort and get to know each other, even if it's online. That's super helpful, because then you have a comfort level with the people. But by the time you do get into the classroom breakout sessions and you feel confident enough to raise your hand and speak in front of everyone and ask the questions, and definitely turn off your devices and try and be in a quiet space for class, so that, or have a backup at work prepared for someone to as a SOS kind of situation, so you're not getting all the fire calls. So it's definitely hard for me. It was hard for me to set the time for myself to say like, this is just for me. And then once I got the hang of it, it worked. It worked itself out.
I hope you can continue doing that in the future. Lifelong learning is absolutely a thing. Like, and we find that the curious mind is a bit like one of the best for leaders. So I sure hope that whatever skills you took for yourself and developed for yourself about finding and dedicating personal development time, professional development time sticks, that you can continue doing it.
And just real quick, because I see the questions in the text. The Tuesday's only like an hour long at lunch. So you don't have to block off your whole workday for Tuesdays. That's just like your 1 hour to get together online as a meeting. But the homework usually can be an hour to 2 hours. So I usually try to do that over the weekend before, because they send it out. And then after the class, usually the professor will post like a PDF or a PowerPoint presentation or just certain slides or extra reading or links to books, not just the books they're trying to sell, but other articles and books that are helpful to read too, and organizations to join, other communities and universities that have business leaders but may not be focused specifically to creatives. So you can take that with a grain of salt and if you're interested or not interested.
Thank you, Tracy. I appreciate you diving into answering questions in the chat. So for people who are still tuning in and you have questions, please drop them into the chat, because I would love to hear responses from Michael and Jose about preparing yourselves to attend the program. And we still have a couple more minutes to answer more questions. So please drop them into the chat as you can. Michael, I'll go to you next. How would you advise people to prepare themselves to attend this program?
Certainly taking off of what Tracy had said is making the time to be present, because you are going to learn a lot in a short amount of time, and you're going to want to be able to take that in, because you'll be learning from this for a long time afterwards. So I think that is a really important thing, is try to mitigate the distractions while you're in the class. And it's a day, in addition to, as Tracy mentioned, the 1 hour get-togethers. And it really is worth it, because you're engaging with your other cohorts and with the instructors, and it's an incredible amount of stuff. And I think, from a mindset, is just, I always tried to set myself up with this, is to come in like completely blank, that I'm not coming in knowing anything at all, and that just to be a sponge and to learn and to listen, not only from the instructors, but from the other people in the class as well too. Because I think that is one of the valuable things, is you're learning about and from other people that are there, in addition to what the instructors are teaching you. And I think that was really invaluable, just to come in with a completely open mind. It made it a lot easier, at least for me, to digest all of the stuff that we were learning.
We did get a couple of questions in the chat that were a little tactical in nature. What times are the Thursday sessions? Those are approximately, I think it's like 9 to 4-ish, with some variations depending on the day. Sometimes it might start a little later, sometimes a little earlier. And same thing goes with how it might end. But it is, I would say, at least 5-ish hours of sessions during Thursday. And then in terms of the faculty listed on the website, yes, Reginald, the faculty that are listed on the website are currently lined up for the program as well. As always, though, there's life happens. And so we can't promise that a faculty member is not going to come down with COVID, like an unfortunate incident on that day of the session. So as much as we try to plan and prepare for the faculty listed to show up to the program, we do have to make some accommodations if life decides otherwise. Jose, how about you? Recommendations for coming into this program?
Recommendations. just be open-minded and ready and curious. And I can say that some really brilliant people are involved with this program, and it can be sort of it can take a moment to kind of like shift gears to be ready to absorb a lesson from someone who has spent their lives studying this extremely specific thing that matters to all of us, but we're not thinking about every day. So, I mean, my one example of that is like negotiation, learning from the negotiation instructor, who is someone who talked about like coaching someone who does negotiation for mergers and acquisitions from like billion-dollar companies. Hearing like the best of what that person has to say condensed into the format of this program was so fascinating. And yeah, just being ready to take all that in.
That's really, really great advice. Coming into the program as a blank slate, coming to the, like, being willing to accept the lessons offered by the faculty, the experiences shared by your cohort. It is truly a time of learning. And I appreciate all three of you who came into the program saying that I want to be open-minded and I'm here to learn. I signed up for this opportunity. I'm here to be taught. So bring it on, and coming in with that energy, that hungry appetite to learn more. I have one more question in the chat, and I'd love to answer it in the 1 minute I have left. What was the most challenging aspect of the course for you? So
It was the accounting class.
was it really? I always hear that's like that the accounting class is very disarming. Like by the end of it, you're like, I got this.
You know, when you're creative, your brain works on a certain side and then the math is on the other side. And sometimes you never learned the new math. I only know the old math. So, and I have a calculator. So to actually focus a whole day on the accounting part and the financials and the tax laws and all that good stuff, it was just a different way of thinking. So that was challenging for me.
I sat in on one of your sessions, and I thought I was laughing just because I found the instructor to be just so charming. But I also appreciate just that's not my language. I did not learn this language. I have a hard time translating what you were saying to me. What about you, Michael?
I think the thing for me was just being able to, having that opportunity to just speak up, to ask questions. I really felt it was a good environment for that, but I also wanted to become, get over some introvertedness, and being very engaging with the people and the instructors that were there. And probably similar to Tracy, in the same boat. I think that the finance one, it's like you hear that line, yeah, I became an artist, so I don't have to do math, kind of thing. But it was very valuable. And again, that's where the open mind came in, because to me now, that's already dovetailed into things that I've made changes with. Although I was nervous or didn't quite get everything that was happening in that particular class, I've already gotten people within the agency to open up more about how our budgets are actually working, which has now been helping me better structure how we did a job, because I get a better understanding of the financials that are behind it. So that, even though I was like, oh, I don't get any of this, in time, that has now helped me, even though I think, when am I ever going to do that kind of thing? But it has already stuck its head up.
Right. I'm so glad to hear that, because that is part of the benefit of a curriculum designed in this way, is this idea of stakeholder management, understanding each other, like the priorities of other departments and how they operate like a finance department. And also you touched on something like the value of learning amongst people who are coming from the same perspective of, I went to art school, so I wouldn't have to think about calculus or accounting right now. And you're all in the same boat. So like the instructor knows that, right? He knows that like you're not trained mathematicians or accountants, like, and so he's bridging this gap for you, which you might not get going to an accounting course at, a general business, your local business school. Finally, Jose, can you wrap us up? What was the most challenging part for you? And then I will start my conclusion.
Yeah, sure. I actually saw a question from someone that really resonated with me in the chat, and I wanted to quickly just acknowledge it, just because it's from Cooper about soft skills, and I 100% identify with this exact situation. It was really, actually, this is a more articulate way of explaining why I was seeking out this course, because I was in this exact situation, and maybe minus the political aspect of it. And yeah, I just wanted to say that I walked away from this program feeling like I could bridge that gap that Cooper mentioned there. But to answer your question, Kristen, with the accounting course, yeah, I'm in the same boat. I guess, yeah, accounting. I do feel like it was approached from a place of understanding that we are not accountants. We are not, like, we didn't study business in school. If we did, it'd be surprising that we got to where we were in our respective creative industries. But I felt like I was able to approach a balance sheet in a way that would have terrified me. And yeah, I think that was probably the most challenging part for me, but also the most enriching.
Well, thank you for that. And thank you, all three of you, for spending your time with us today. Thank you for everyone in the questions who submitted questions, and for all of you who attended the call. I really appreciate you joining us and coming to us open-minded and here to participate in our conversation. We are looking forward to connecting with you all one-on-one. Cooper, I know I would love to touch base with you more about the topic of soft skills versus hard skills and navigating organizational dynamics. So I look forward to connecting with you after this webinar. So I wanted to just wrap things up by saying, if you have more questions for us, please reach out. You will be receiving a recording of this webinar after the webinar concludes. You'll also be receiving our contact information along with ways to stay connected with Tracy, Michael, and Jose. So if you have questions for any of us, please keep us in mind. We're here to help. The program is open for applications right now. The deadline is December 18th. So while that feels like a far moment in time away from right now, where here we are, I know that we all have a lot of deadlines. We have a lot of projects. We have a lot of clients, and we have a lot of holidays coming up, and family members and stakeholders to manage. So it's going to get really busy coming up in the next couple of weeks. So I encourage you to start pulling together your application materials now if you feel like you're interested in applying, while you have some time to dedicate to the application. And if you have questions about the application, feel free to contact me. I'm happy to help. The application requirements include submitting your CV and your resume, as well as a letter of interest describing your background and your motivations for attending the program. So we would love for you to attend, but I understand if your path leads you in a different direction. We completely understand. We're here to champion learning and challenging yourself so you can best support yourself and others. And so if it's not us that you choose, let's help you find the next spot. So if you have any, I reiterate, if you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Jose, for your time. I appreciate it. We hope you enjoyed the webinar. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.